Welcome to Faith in the Morning. Something good is going to happen to you today, so expect miracles. Thank you for joining me today. Faith in the Morning exists to help you start today with faith and encouragement, and that's exactly what's going to happen today. Let's get started with our 2023 Faith Family Confessions. You can find it on the show notes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or the description on social media. Say it with me. Say, I'm the salt of the earth. I'm the light of this world. Jesus said it, so I believe it. I'm a carrier of the glory of God. Today, I will experience the extreme goodness of God. Today, I make myself available for God to show his goodness to others through me. Today, I am increasing in influence. Today, I will see the goodness of God in my life. Today, something good is going to happen to me, so I expect miracles. Go with me to Romans chapter 4. Romans chapter 4. And as I was searching my heart, like, Lord, what would you like me to share this week? Just listening to his voice leading me on the inside. And we've been talking a lot the last month of following God's plan for your life. And I believe what we share today and this week's going to help you go further in that. But it remind me of what the Lord told me concerning 2023. Last year, I believe it was in October, I was heading to a really early meeting. Like, well, how early was it? I live in the metro Atlanta area. It was so early. Traffic had not begun in the Atlanta area. And if you know Atlanta traffic, that's pretty early. So I'm driving there, doing my best to, just get ready for the day, get ready for the first meeting. And I was like, you know what? Let me just pray. Let me just get myself, spiritually ready and mentally ready as I go forward. And as I turn to pray, just in my heart, because I'm striving, just in my heart, turning my attention to the Lord, he begins to speak to me about 2023. And this is what he shared with me. And if you've been following me for a while, you've heard me say it before. He said 2023 will be a year of contradiction. And when he said that, this is what rose in my heart. Here's the contradiction. It's a year of the extreme goodness and provision of God in the midst of the extreme depravity and lack of man. It's a year of extremes. It's a year of Goshen. And so when he said the year of extremes and the contradiction, it reminded me of Romans chapter 4. And I want to share that with you today because when you follow God's plan for your life, you're going to run into contradictions all the time. So, Romans chapter 4, notice what it says here because we're going to see the contradiction that we're referring to. And you see it in your own life, even it's not the same thing as what Abraham and Sarah saw in theirs. In Romans chapter 4, let's start with verse 16. Therefore, it is of faith that it might be according to grace, so that the promise might be sure to all the seed, not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who are of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, in the presence of him whom he believed, God, who gives life to the dead, and calls those things which do not exist as though they did, who contrary to hope, in hope believed, so that he became the father of many nations, according to what was spoken, so shall your descendants be. And not being weak in faith, he did not consider his own body already dead, since he was about 100 years old, and the deadness of Sarah's womb. He did not waver at the promise of God through unbelief, but was strengthened in faith, giving glory to God, and being fully convinced that what he had promised, he was also able to perform. And therefore, it was accounted to him for righteousness. Abraham had a covenant with God. He had a promise from God. God promised him he'd be the father of many nations. He had spoke to Abraham. He had spoke to Sarah. But there was an ever-present contradiction, the deadness of his body. Abraham, by this point, he's about 100. Sarah, 90. It was impossible for them together to have kids ahead of time. And now it's super impossible for them to have it now. The contradiction was there's no way their body could be renewed to do with the promise. It's the contradiction. Although the contradiction was present, there was a covenant. And your covenant has to be bigger in your mind than the contradiction. What God has called you to do has to be bigger in your mind than the contradiction. There will always be a reason why you can't fulfill the plan of God for your life. There'll always be a reason why the promise can't happen. Just like Abraham and Sarah had many different reasons why what God promised could not happen in their life. Notice what they chose to do. They chose to believe the promise. They chose to be strong in faith, giving glory to God. They chose to believe in hope when there seemed to be no hope. And we know the end of the story. They had Isaac. Don't consider the contradiction. We'll get into that a little bit tomorrow. What does that mean, consider? Does that mean think about? No, that word consider there in the New King James means to fill your mind with it. Don't fill your mind with the contradiction. Fill your mind with the covenant. Fill your mind with the goodness of God. So as we go throughout this week, looking back at some of these things the Lord shared about 2023, we're wrapping up the year. We see the end of the year in the full sight, wrapping up the fiscal year of some companies. As we go forward, I want to make sure that you're not filling your mind with the contradiction, but you're filling the mind with your covenant with God. You're filling your mind with his promises for your life, because that's how you can move forward and have a wonderful week. So before we go, say, this is going to be a great week for me. Come on, say out loud, put it in the chat. Say, this is going to be a great week for me. Come on, say out loud, put it in the chat. Say, this is going to be a great week for me. Don't consider the contradiction. Consider the promise. Man, we're out of time. I want to share with you so much more concerning this, but I'll see you next time.